And welcome in episode 38 right here, The Grind on Sports. I'm Wayne Kaiser alongside Ben Metz, and we're here to talk a little sports. Took a 1 week hiatus. Kind of, I don't know if we had to recoup from the NFL draft. I don't know if I had to prepare for the Morgan Wallen concert in Nashville last week. But either way, it just didn't work out last week. But here to wrap up 2 weeks worth of action, NFL draft. NFL kind of situation there. Talk a little bit about the basketball Vols, how they've kind of rebuilt what's left. Still some work to do there. And then ultimately talk about the number 1 ranked Tennessee Volunteer baseball team. Buddy, how you doing?
Man, great to see you, Wayne. And, it was nice to have a brief break there. We had a lot going on. But Tennessee baseball Vols, now number 1 team. You mentioned that overall, number 1. They swept that series against Missouri and take 2 out of 3 against the Gators, beating Queens last night. So excited to break down the number 1 Tennessee Vols as they go to Middle Tennessee, a rivalry game coming up against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, big series this weekend against the Commodores, no doubt. Obviously, Vanderbilt not the juggernaut that they've been in the last few years, but it's still an in-state rivalry. Tim Corbin. He's a marked man if you're a Volunteer fan, and ultimately, hopefully, we can at least get 2 out of 3 from Vandy. But I think icing on the cake, I'd almost take a series loss to South Carolina if we can sweep the Commodores.
Yeah,
just how I feel.
I'm with you, man. And when it comes to Vanderbilt, that's especially at Vanderbilt, they're so good at home. They've struggled this year on the road. But with them being so good at home, for us to take 2 out of 3 and win that series, it would be encouraging as we go into the postseason.
Sure enough, we'll get to that at the latter part of the show. But let's kind of open up with probably the farthest away sport right now, and that's the NFL draft. That did complete the next day after our last podcast. Had 3 Volunteers drafted. And then had several more signed to free agent contracts. I honestly, I thought it was a really good showing by Josh Heupel's crew. Honestly, it's getting back to that realm of we're putting multiple guys in the league every single year, and I think that's ultimately how you become a really good football team. Didn't have a high round draft pick. Really, Jalen Wright, and anytime your top players are running back in the draft, that's going to slide you down a few rounds just because the market and the price tag on running backs has went down over the last few years. I actually think he was a top 5 running back taken. It just wasn't necessarily in the top 2 or 3 rounds.
Right. And the first three picks of the NFL draft were quarterbacks. So they were a premium early on in the draft, going down to pick number 12, where the Denver Broncos picked Bo Nix. Your former team there, but yeah, I mean it was a quarterback, wide receiver heavy. Offensive tackles were taken early as well. So defense got kind of the cold shoulder later on in the first round, and some of those guys fell about midway through. But overall, it was an exciting draft.
Yeah, they actually broke a record. I think six quarterbacks were taken in the top 12 picks. And that's Bo Nix was not a top 12 pick, but I think it was a run on quarterbacks. Everybody got a little hasty there, and then Bo Nix is a top 12 pick. So it's good for him. He'll get top 12 money, and then we'll see if the Broncos can do anything with it. But, something just doesn't feel right talking NFL. Last time we were here, my fandom was up in the air. We kind of washed that out. So I guess I need to fix something. Hold on just a second.
Drum roll. Oh! Tighten up, baby.
Oh, tighten up. So here's the thing. All the things we talked about, it came down to one deal. A lot of things can change. People can retire. players can get cut, all the things can happen, but there's one thing that'll never change for me, and it's my love for the state of Tennessee. Being a Tennessean and ominously being able to see them every Sunday on the radio, listen to Mike Keith call the games, and possibly go down to Nashville and catch one or two. So, I'm all in now. I've been put me on this 3-month program now. I got to learn all the stuff. Know a little bit about it. Good thing about teams that don't have historical success is it's a pretty short book.
and really, the Titans, according to a lot of critics, did an exceptional job in this draft. They fulfilled the needs that they had at the left tackle spot with J.C. Latham. They were able to get an edge rusher there as well. So getting good feedback on how they performed in this draft to support Will Levis.
Yeah, and I'll be the first to say I don't know the roster enough to know what turned over and what's coming back. So I think that's my homework item going into the to winter workouts or I guess rookie training camp, if you will, here in the next couple of weeks. But the big deal that I saw is Will Levis was one of the most sacked and hurried quarterbacks in the NFL. So yeah, your top draft pick needed to be an offensive lineman, and it was. Your second draft pick was an edge rusher. There's a little bit of a rap sheet with him. I think he got a DUI during the draft process. But here's the thing. He may be driving a bus on the football field, but we don't give him any car keys on the football field. And that may be a really hard way to look at it. But to me, I don't know. I don't think this employer necessarily does a driving record background check. The Tennessee Titans are his new employer, and at this rate, they wanted to know how quick he could get past a left tackle or a guy that's dropping into pass defense or pass rush offense. So to me, I like the pick. I think he was at that point. He was a pretty hot commodity right there. I don't know that he would have been available. Titans didn't have a 3rd-round pick, so I don't know that he would have been there in the 4th round. So you get what you can get. I will say, looks like, and the Titans said this, Coach Callahan, Rand Carthon, who is the GM, said this in the post-draft press conference. This is a team that's not done making changes. They just signed Tyler Boyd, the former Bengals wide receiver, earlier today or yesterday. So I think they're building some girth or some beef there in the lines and in the secondary there. But they're going to go skill position players through the portal, if you will, but free agency for the National Football League. So I think there's still more to be done. I still think you probably would like to see kind of a veteran running back beyond Tony Pollard to be in that room. But I think wide receivers, you're pretty stacked because you've got DeAndre Hopkins, you've got Tyler Boyd, you've still got Tyler Dirks or whatever, the guy who kind of got injured there last season. So I like what they've got. Calvin Ridley just signed over from the Browns. So I think there's good firepower there. Obviously, you need a little running game to be able to get the receivers open, but I think they're working that direction. So I like what the Titans did. I think their draft grade was somewhere B-. I'm cool with it.
Yeah, and I would, to be honest with you, and I saw a couple of those grades at B- when I evaluated some of these teams, especially in the AFC. I would probably lean more towards an A. I think where they're getting the B is that they feel there's some question about whether or not J.C. Latham can play from the left side because he is a right tackle from Alabama. So that's, we've heard from before from offensive linemen that it's like, driving a car from the passenger seat. You have to learn it all over from the beginning. Of course, J.C. Latham is not saying that. J.C. Latham is saying that the transition is going to be seamless. I think the Titans went in looking for Joe Alt. Joe Alt gets picked up in the 5th pick. They have to settle with J.C. And that's a very generous word to settle because this guy's a phenomenal tackle. And you talked about it. I mean, their biggest need going in was the offensive tackle position because allowing 31st in sack rating per drop back on Will Levis. So this is going to help him out to get comfortable in the pocket and get passes to wide receivers like Calvin Ridley and company. But I thought also they got that safety, James Williams, and dude, this guy is 6'4", 242-pound safety. I mean, how many
That's
guys?
a linebacker 10 years ago.
I mean, yeah, how many guys? I mean, play a safety position in the collegiate level, and I think their intent is to make him a linebacker. But that tells you the capability of James Williams. I mean, this is a guy that has the awareness, the field awareness needed from gap assignment and then going sideline to sideline on any kind of toss plays or passes out in the perimeter.
And I think if you're able to keep up, because in today's NFL, there are linebackers that have to drop into coverage. I think that's what you hope for, is you take a maybe a little larger secondary player in the college game, make them a linebacker, get them in a workout program, and then allow them to have that lateral quickness to where they can drop in coverage and kind of help you there too. But I thought overall it's a good building spot. You got a new coaching staff. I think there's a lot of the upside on the Titans side. And really, going back to the whole fandom choice, it boiled down to probably going into the draft, I'd pretty much ruled out the Panthers. We had talked about them. Couldn't go for the last team Peyton Manning beat. That just didn't fly with me. The Falcons were in the mix. I thought the Chiefs pretty much had been ruled out just by distance and by lack of connection to them should this current run of success go away. And I think you helped me a lot too. Being a Tennessee fan, one of the reasons you're a Tennessee fan, if you look behind me, it's because I have moments that I can relate to. I have moments to where I was there when this happened, or I got this at this special game, or different things happen. Well, for the Chiefs, they're on this run of success that really, if they three-peat next year, I'm going to be jumping up and down, three-peat, and all the Chiefs fans are going to be going, so, I mean, yeah, three-peat's cool, but we've been doing this for a while. You're the new guy. There's going to be some level of members-only jacket that I'll just never have with Chiefs fans. But at the same rate, and it's what drew me to the Titans, was I'll always be from Tennessee. They've had a little run when they moved to Nashville, got to the Super Bowl, but have obviously had some heartbreak there. So if they were to build this thing and get back, I'll be with them, from the jump. So that's kind of what won it over for the Titans. And then ultimately, I don't know. I don't want to say that the Falcons failed the draft. I would think a lot of professionals would say I was wrong there, that maybe they did screw this thing up. But we were talking to a guy there the other day off camera, and they were saying, you want to say another franchise that drafted their eventual replacement with the hopes of them sitting, and it was the Packers, and that they've done that multiple times. So to me, I don't know that the Falcons screwed it up. It just, in some of my research, they don't typically historically draft Tennessee players. They continued that trend. Didn't even sign a free agent Tennessee player. So to me, the Dirty Birds ain't about the Big Orange. So that kind of separates them. It's in the state of Georgia. So it boiled down to the only reason I would pick them is an indoor stadium, which the Titans are about to get one in a couple years, and two, their color scheme being the same as Maryville's. I mean, really, that was the only thing that would have drawn me to the Falcons. I honestly think I don't think this is necessarily going to work. I think there's going to be some beef between Kirk Cousins and Penix pretty much out of the gate, and so we'll just see how that plays out. But in my opinion, they did what they thought was best for their franchise. It looks like they at the 8th pick, they take Michael Penix Jr. after paying Kirk Cousins $100 million, and so to me, that's going to be what they have to answer for here in the next couple years.
Yeah, and the interesting aspect of that pick of Kirk Cousins, or of Penix over Kirk Cousins, was that going into the draft, the Atlanta Falcons had needs at corner and did not draft a defensive back in any round or in any pick. So, yeah, to your point, this is kind of becoming a common behavior that we're seeing from the Atlanta Falcons, is they pick the shiniest penny out of the bunch. They saw Michael Penix that was still available, and they said, hey, Mel Kiper says he's the best guy that's out there. So let's go ahead and pick him, even though we got Kirk Cousins. We could go get a defensive back. And really, and you and I have seen this live, and we've seen it on TV in the game of football with RPO nowadays. If you don't have cornerbacks and safeties that can cover the field, and you have that pass protection up front, it causes fits on that defensive back group. So very interesting that they didn't pick a defensive back.
Yeah, here's a hot take that I don't know that we've talked about off air, but I wouldn't be surprised just knowing that front office. I don't know that the Falcons expected to pick there. And if you know what I'm talking about, I think they kind of was like, oh, because there was all those rumblings of the Broncos wanting to move into the top 10 to take a quarterback. There was all these other teams, and they're like, I could be wrong. I would like to think GMs are more competent than that. But I don't know. It just seemed awful rushed because they took their full allotment. And then when they picked it, I didn't see like that we got our guy moment. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I'm wondering if they fielded offers, nothing was enticing enough. Then they looked up and they had about 30 seconds left to go, and they went, what's Mel say's the best available? Boom, go. I mean, that if I was a Falcons fan, I would hope that I'm wrong. But I can just say, based on that pick and the backlash that came from it from all the professionals that seem to know more than we do, may have been the case. Maybe they thought they were going to get multiple picks down to kind of address some of that other stuff. Well, then when they took a quarterback, then they're behind the 8 ball because they had to readdress different things that maybe they didn't want to at a later round. But overall, I thought your Ravens, a team that really didn't need a whole lot. I thought they did a good job of, and they usually do, of finding young talent. But we'll see how things play out for them. But I think odds-on favorites next year to at least be in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I like the pickup of Nate Wiggins. He's a cornerback that can not only guard the fastest receiver on the field, but he also has kind of that Kyle Hamilton ability to blitz from kind of a ninja blitz from the side and be able to get in the backfield. So it'd be good to have him. Really like the linebacker pickup. We lost Patrick Queen this year, so able to get that Penn State linebacker, Adisa Isaac, at number 93. And then my other favorite pick there was Devontae Walker from North Carolina. That's a wide receiver that will just add to the Rashad Bateman group and just somebody that can provide a lot of speed for that specific group. But, you were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. I felt like Kansas City Chiefs making that trade with the Buffalo Bills to get a wide receiver to backfill Tyreek Hill. That to me, when they were able to get that number 28 pick with Xavier Worthy, that immediately put them in discussion for having the best draft class. So I thought that was a really critical trade that they made up, and Xavier Worthy now backfills Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, and I'll say, with the Rice situation that's going on in Kansas City, I don't expect him to be back for probably ever. But he's got a lot of legal things that's gonna take his time away from the NFL. Let's just say that. But Ben, overall, like I said, the NFL draft is all about how they fit the system. It's all about how they kind of mesh with the team that they are now a part of. And so I think you're going to see teams that had a C grade, D grade in this draft find some diamonds out of this deal. But then you're also going to see some people that everybody's like, oh, this was an A+, and you're going to see some NFL guys that the game speed's going to take a minute for it to come to them. So I like the draft. I think it's fun, especially like the first and second round, just the pageantry that, that's life-changing situation. As you get later in the draft, it's cool because different people get to announce the pick. Obviously, the sketch, the "What's Up, Brother" guy, he got to call one for the Texans. I thought there was all kinds of cool stuff. Barry Sanders got to call one for the Lions. But at the end of the day, it's what you do with them, how you develop them, and where you take it from here. So I still like I still think probably the tops in the NFC or the AFC right now are the Ravens and the Chiefs. I don't think that needle moved a whole lot. And then I think on the NFC side, it's probably a little bit less decided. I honestly, I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know that I knew who the top was going into it. But I would say the Niners had a pretty good draft class. I would think they're probably up there pretty good. I think the Eagles didn't do a terrible job. So I would say those two franchises probably right up there in the NFC going into this season, at least coming out of the draft.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think you spoke very well to that. The Dallas Cowboys, as much as I don't like the Dallas Cowboys, I felt like they drafted very well. I saw multiple grades for them, and them being able to pick up a guy like Tyler Guyton at number 29, an offensive tackle from Oklahoma that'll provide some of that protection in the pocket. But I really like that Notre Dame linebacker that they picked up late in the third round. So got a couple offensive tackles, couple linebackers, a good edge rusher, and an offensive tackle. So the Cowboys will be a team as well in the mix at the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm still breaking that hat in, so I had to get back to something that's a little bit more podcast friendly here. So, but anyway, that's the NFL segment. Again, a lot of people's beat that up, so we didn't need to necessarily dig amazingly deep into that. But obviously, as the offseason goes, if there's any big signings, we'll definitely talk about that. But we'll move on from here. Tennessee basketball, again, a little bit in the rearview mirror as of now, based on the season being done, college basketball in general being done. But now it's transfer portal season. I thought Tennessee basketball did a really good job and is doing a really good job of getting kids on campus, getting young men to kind of fit the niche and quite frankly, upgrade some positions of people that felt like they needed to walk away. I love the kid, the 6'11" kid. His name's escaping me from Ohio State. That big kid, was it
Akapara? We're gonna have to figure out how to pronounce these names. It's like when we all went through that transition with Nico Ilama'aweva, right?
Yeah, something like that.
We had to learn the names, but Felix Akapara.
So yeah, he's a monster. So he is, and I don't think it's any. I think it's on purpose that his announcement, his commitment, picture, video, all those things had a 0 jersey. I think a lot of nobody liked how Adu left the program. Again, no knock on him. He's got to do what's best for him. Obviously, it had a little bit more pork flair to it. He went to Arkansas, but I think Akpara is going to be a beast. I think he's going to be a freak in this system. I think he's way more physical than Adu ever was. I think he's kind of a blend with the height of what Tobe Awaka was. The only difference is this guy shoots like 35% from three-point land. So I love what he brings to the table. I think he's played big-time basketball in the Big Ten, and so I think at this rate, this is an upgrade from Jonas Adu. I think I can absolutely say that.
83 blocks in 23.5 minutes per game last year in the Big Ten in big-time basketball, 6.4 points per game. It's a guy that can shoot in the paint. This is a guy who can play around the perimeter. Very defensive basketball player. He's going to block a lot of shots. You talked about his size, his physicality, great addition to the team. And we talked about how we were going to replace Dalton Connect. And I'm going to butcher this guy's name as well. Igor Milicic Jr. Milicic. Okay. And I'm sorry, but yes, we'll learn his name as we continue to root for him. Welcome to Tennessee. This guy, 6'10" forward, 6'10", and he's averaging 12 points per game, 8 rebounds. He's north of 37% from beyond the arc. That exceeds everybody. That exceeds everybody but Dalton Connect. So this is a guy that's probably going to fulfill that spot quite nicely around the arc. And like you mentioned, having Felix down low at the post, we've backfilled some of the needs that we had.
Yeah, and there's still, I think they've got 3 three scholarships that they can still fill. So we'll see. That's probably the DeLeon position. I think we're going to have to find some little shooters in there. Don't forget about Darlingstone Dubar, 6'8" guard from Hofstra.
Yep.
I think that's going to be a huge addition. He averaged 17.8 points a game, 6.8 rebounds as a senior from Hofstra. So we're only going to have him for 1 year. Also shot near 40% from three. So I think, we talked about it in the hallways with some of our coworkers. I would rather have four guys that can average 15 to 17 than have one guy that can average 40. I just think it's a whole lot harder to game plan and scheme for that. And then I think, inevitably we've seen the brand of basketball that Rick Barnes and staff puts out there. Inevitably, he's going to find a niche that he can kind of drive a wedge in, and there's going to be guys that go off for 28, 32 points a game.
Yeah, I'm very excited about DeBar. He's going to complement Meshack and Ziegler very well around the perimeter. This is a guy, again, who is north of 6'5", 6'8". So, the smallest guy on the court by far is going to be Ziegler. And then you're going to have a bunch of these guys just packing down underneath that box, getting those rebounds, getting it back out to the perimeter, working the post. It's going to be exciting basketball. And look how quick Rick Barnes was able to get into the transfer portal and start fulfilling the needs within just a matter of a month.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting is really how I don't know. It's just so weird. You look at it, we graduate these guys leave the team, and you're sitting here going, okay, Zakai Ziegler, and who else is going to start for the Vols? And now we've pretty much backfilled most of those spots. I'm interested in your opinion. If you were to just speculate a starting five for this next year's Tennessee basketball team, how do you roll that out? Ultimately, Rick Barnes doesn't play a 1-5 setup. He'll play small, he'll play big. So even I don't know that we can get it right, but I think it'll be interesting. Obviously, he's a lock, I think, for both of us. I can start. I think Dubar is going to be in there. I think you're going to see a lot of the transfers, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see Meshack get some starts, and that's just because they're going to appreciate his loyalty to the team, right? That's a big thing for Rick Barnes. So I'm going to say Dubar. I'm going to say Meshack, Ziegler, Meshack, and then I think Dubar. I think, what was the big guy's name? Okpara. I don't know why Okafor. Didn't he play football? But anyway, Okpara, and then I think Dubar. I think there's going to be some rotate in there. We're going to figure out who clicks right there, but I think there's going to be a lot of that 15-minute, 19-minute rotation to where there's going to be a lot of guys play. Whoever gets on the starting lineup is who's there, but I think we're going to see some movement in there.
Yeah, I think Gainey might compete for that 2 spot. Ziegler, obviously at the 1, and then when you look at your 3-4, probably going with Milicic.
I was going to say Milicic's got to get in there somewhere, right?
Milicic's got to get in there. I mean, if he's putting up that kind of shooting at the size of being 6'10" as a forward, getting 12.8 points per game, I mean, just unbelievable. And he can rebound. And then you've got to put Okpara down at center. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see where DeBar, Gainey, and Meshack, how they work through the offseason and fight for those positions that are readily available. I think the ones that are obvious is Okpara and Ziegler. I think Okpara is going to be your big guy. He's got to be your big guy. You don't have any choice after losing a Waka Nadu. So you're putting all your eggs in one basket there. And then, of course, Ziegler's the leader of this team. He's going to be the heart and soul.
It's a fun problem to have, and I think it'll morph and it'll change based on our opponent. But I think it's super interesting the fact that Meshack. I forgot about Gainey, honestly. I didn't forget about him, but at the same rate, you don't bring in transfers for them to sit on the bench. So I think it's interesting. Gainey's one that you question. Obviously, a coach's kid, so I think he's a team first guy. But Meshack, he stuck around, so I think he's going to get some minutes. But then guys like Estrella, I honestly thought, obviously, the player of the year, Zach Edey, Estrella put him to work there a few times. So as a freshman, so is it one of those that they want to see him groom, maybe add some minutes as a sophomore, and then really set him up for a really strong junior, senior year? Maybe that's the play for Estrella, but I don't know. I love this team that they've found a groove here to where this coaching staff, this university, this recruiting staff, if you will, they can seem to get people on campus. And then I think once you get on campus, you see Thompson Bowling Arena, Food City Center, and you see all of that. I don't know. It's next level. I mean, it's as you're going to play in front of as many people in Thompson Bowling Arena as you will at the pro level some nights. And then honestly, I think we're taking advantage of some other programs maybe having some issues and some change there. So full speed ahead for Coach Rick Barnes. Love what he's doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. He has, like I said, in a short period of time fulfilled the needs that we were looking for, and we'll see how things go coming into the off season for basketball.
Sure enough. But it is May 8th, Ben, and that means that all eyes are turning to baseball. Baseball, whether it be MLB, whether it be college baseball, ultimately college baseball's getting to a fever pitch, no pun intended, to see where people are going to be stacked up going into their conference tournaments, and then ultimately setting that 16 region hosts set up here in the next few weeks. Tennessee baseball's down to about, I guess we've got one more midweek game, two home series, one home series, one road series, and then we're headed off to the Hoover Met to see what we can do.
That's right, and what an exciting weekend in college baseball. Texas A&M held that number one spot. They dropped the weekend series to LSU. Other teams had trouble, like Kentucky and Arkansas over the weekend, and poof. We go into Monday and you and I are getting these alerts saying Tennessee's ranked number one overall. So a lot of things had to happen for us to get there. The team definitely deserves what they have been given. Where I think we have a little bit of an advantage going into the Vanderbilt series is the fact that we're number two in the SEC East. So we are number one, the number one team in the country, but number two in our conference. So I think we got a little bit of
our life, man.
I think we got a little bit of a chip on our shoulder going into this weekend series, and I like that.
Well, here's what I like. And ifs and buts, cookies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. But, we dropped the midweek game to Belmont, which ultimately I told you last week, I thought that was a good thing. I thought that'd send us to Gainesville a little ticked off and see if that couldn't, kind of drum up some intensity, right? But I look back and you think back to that Kentucky game, that second game that we let get away from us late. You talk about the mid game in this Florida series. You win those two games, you're number one overall in the SEC. And so it's a game of inches. It's a game of where do you want to be? All of those different things. But we talked about it a little bit. Don't get me wrong. You want to win your conference. I think you want to put yourself in a position to kind of recognize that dominance or kind of announce that presence. But at the end of the day, their last two World Series champions didn't win their conference.
Right. Yeah.
So I thought it was a good point today. I read an article that said in previous years, a number one ranking would be the headline. Now it's just a footnote for Tennessee baseball because it's not the goal. Being number one in the country, we've done that probably 3 or 4 out of the last 5 years. We've made it there. It's just getting over the hump, getting to Omaha, winning a game in Omaha, in kind of pushing that envelope to get to a championship series.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about it. I think, the dimensions, I'm going to bring up the dimensions of Lindsey Nelson. And the reason why I bring this up from my perspective, being a fan, is when they made the overhaul to Lindsey Nelson, I wanted to see them move center field out a little bit. So this past weekend, we lost to Lipscomb. Or this past week, we lost to Lipscomb, a midweek game. Lipscomb is a powerful baseball team. I think they have 70 plus home runs on the season, but they have a 16-27 record. The dimensions at Lipscomb compared to Omaha are 330 down the lines, 375 left center, 400 center, 375 right center, 330 right field. Omaha is 335, 375, 408, 375, 335. Then you look at Lindsey Nelson, we're 320 down the line. So it's Farragut High School. So if you're from Knoxville, it's arguably more difficult to hit a baseball out of Farragut High School than it is Lindsey Nelson. 360 in the gaps, 390 to dead center field. That's an 18-foot difference in dead center field. So a couple years ago, just speaking to this point, a couple years ago, we had arguably the best team in college baseball. And we hosted the regional and the super regional at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. And if you all recall, we barely got out of the regional to get to the super regional because we had teams like Liberty jacking home runs, into the river, so to speak. And Notre Dame, very similar. Notre Dame came in and one swing of the at bat, and you're trying to catch up from being down, and you can be demoralized very quickly. And Wayne, you made a good point. We both teams have to play on the same field, so that advantage goes to Tennessee as much as it goes to the opponent. But last year we were on the road. We had to fight from the regional to the super regional on the road to get to Omaha, and we performed better. We won at Clemson and we won at Southern Missouri, able to get to Omaha. And then you saw in Omaha how the ball just dies out in the outfield. It's more small ball, hitting your gaps, having effective pitching. My hope is that we continue to perform well. But as fans, we just need to be prepared for hot teams coming in. And you said it, Wayne, we have to pitch well. That's the bottom line. Is if we host the regional and the super regional, we can't have an inconsistent game by Drew Beam. Drew Beam can't give up those long balls that he gave up in the second game against Florida. Can't do it. That's
consistency has to come from somewhere, right?
Right.
Either we have to consistently hit the baseball and it just be a track meet from there. Who's gonna? Because I do think, in a general sense, even in our inconsistent games, we're at least level playing field to the upper hand pitching, regardless. Any given night, what we roll out of there is every bit of as proven as the next guy, is the opposing pitcher. So, but what happens is, and this is what happened against Belmont. Belmont's a little bit of an asterisk, or not Belmont. Lipscomb is a little bit of an asterisk because we didn't roll out their Snead. We didn't roll out their Beam. We didn't roll out any weekend starter. The only person that got out there was like some of the closing guys. I think Kirby might have come in for a little bit. But here's my deal there is you can't have inconsistency in both arenas. And so what you do during midweek games, because you pitch the lesser pitchers. I don't want to say, somebody said, yeah, we just pitch nobodies on Tuesdays. I'm like, they're D1 pitchers. I'm not going to call a D1 pitcher a nobody. But here's the thing. The lesser of pitching. We are playing our young pups. We're playing our guys that maybe don't have the stuff just yet. And so inconsistency in pitching. So what you can't have is inconsistency in hitting. And we let them chew us up a little bit. What bugs me a little bit about this team, and again, it's a culture thing. It's the way they've been taught. They'll eat the first strike. I don't care if it's a 37-mile-an-hour fat meatball. They're going to just be like, no. Yep, that's what he's going to do. Let's wait for the good stuff now. And I don't get that per se. And there's guys that jump on the first pitch, but I see a lot of first pitch strikes because that's the MO. Tennessee's let it eat you, that first pitch. And so, but once you get one on you, well, then a questionable outside should be a ball. Guy behind the plate calls it a strike. You got two on you. Then you chase something stupid. And so, to me, that's how Lipscomb happened. Was we knew we had inconsistency in pitching, and then we didn't hit well, and then they were chewing us up. They were chewing up our young pitchers, putting them out of there. And so, I think that's ultimately the thing. But I think Semo, he is a freak of nature. Christian Moore is a freak. He is going to be a first-round draft pick, I think, unless he gets injured. He's that guy. Probably SEC Player of the Year if old guy at Florida, Caglione, doesn't, just break everything because he can pitch too.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's the only thing that Caglione probably has on Semo. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we've got Semo. We've got Blake Burke. Blake's hitting. He can hit the ball. He's figuring out ways to hit the off-speed stuff. So I think he's a weapon. I think guys like Curley, guys like Inslee, guys like Dreiling, they can all hit home runs. It's just we can't have bad and bad. I mean, it's just that's the recipe for failure, right? And so I think it's one of those. Yes, we both play in Lindsey Nelson, and so to me, if a Liberty, and I'm going to say this in the NIL era, a Liberty bought team, if they can beat, and I'm using Liberty just because you said them a couple years ago, but if Liberty comes in here and beats us at our own ballpark, we deserve to get beat. Because in theory, we have better players, we pay our players more, and we're at home. Mm-hmm. So to me, I get it, and don't get me wrong, that distance and those things add to the psychological side of baseball. It makes it to where everybody can't hit it out. You can have really good hitters that just ain't got the oomph to get it, whatever you were saying those Omaha distances are. Now, ultimately, you're absolutely true. You get to Omaha, then you got to start doing something with it. But I think, Tony Vitello and staff, players, they practice in that ballpark. They know that ballpark. And so to me, it would be negligent not to train to combat your distances, right? And I know that's easier said than done. I'm not an MLB pitcher, right. But what I'm saying is, sounds like you need to get it on the ground. You need to pitch in a way that it's ground balls or it's long fly balls because they've got to get so far under it they pop it up. But I think you're going to break a few eggs when you're making a championship omelet. So I think you just got to be ready to put some in the parking lot yourself and call it a day.
Yeah, and this team right now, you talked a lot about it, Wayne. You talked about how hot of a baseball team they are. So in that Florida series, the top four, they have solidified their top four. Moore, Burke, Amick, and Dreiling. They were 15 of 18 in the doubleheader.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about Billy Batts. I mean, Billy Batts, Billy Amick.
They are astounding at the top four of that lineup. I don't think there's a better four hitters in the game right now than that four right there. And our pitching. So in the Missouri series, our bullpen has been phenomenal. In the Missouri series and in the Florida series, they allowed in the Missouri series just one run over 13 innings pitched, a .69 earned run, 11 strikeouts. I mean, so you're starting to see guys like Kirby Cannell come in, be very efficient in multiple frames. So to your point, when we get in there into the playoffs, and we've talked about this in other sports as well, like Kelly Harper. When you get into these playoffs or these championships or these tournaments, a coach's ability to manage the game is magnified and it's criticized. So we go back a couple years back in the Notre Dame series, Vitello not making that pitching change early in the ball game with the pitcher who went to Georgia Tech. I can't remember his name.
You talking about Burns?
Burns, yeah. Left Burns in there. And
he went to Wake. He went to Wake.
Yeah, went to Wake. You're right. But we talked about this throughout this season. And at that time is that when the catcher's sitting there like this, and you and I are in the cheap seats with all the fans that are listening, and we start to see that glove go like this, or we start to see the glove go like this, center, boom, boom, and we're getting away with it, get him out. Have Peebles get up, have Cal Stark get up, come in the dugout, say, hey, coach, I'm showing low and outside. The ball's drifting to the center of the plate. I think it's going to be a problem. And it is. These hitters, if you leave a ball over the middle part of the plate at Lindsey Nelson, and you're a hot team coming in after winning in the regionals to the super regionals, and you leave balls over the middle of the plate, to your point, it's going to be a long day, and we deserve to get beat. Because
you better bring the sticks with you too.
yeah, because we're going to be coming off regionals. We better stay hot, because whoever's coming to us, they're going to be hot, and they're becoming a short porch. So pitching is going to be key with this team. If we do with the number one ranking, if we do solidify super regional.
Well, and I'll say this, man, I really believe Tony Vitello has grown tremendously over the last couple of years, talking about those decisions. I can't remember. I want to say he pinch hit somebody. Maybe it was Dreiling. I think he might have been giving Dreiling off last night, and he brought him in and he hit that 3-run jack to really separate and win last night's game, because realistically we were flat again against Queens there. Not that they were not playing good ball. I thought they did some things. They had some nice catches in the outfield. They were doing some things nice, and ultimately we were pitching our less than pitchers. And so I thought he made some really good key plays at certain moments. I even told Laura, not that I don't think the bottom end of our lineup can win games, but I told her, kind of going into that 6th, 7th, I'm like, I just got a really good feeling, or I got a really bad feeling that we need to score right now. Cause I don't know the way we were kind of just lulling through that game. We gave up 2 runs in the first inning of that game and didn't have it. Queens didn't have a hit. We hit pitchers, we walked guys, and we had 2 wild pitches, and it basically scored at least one of those runs. And then the second one came around on like a pop fly, because I'm sitting here going, oh no, we're the deadbeats of the midweek. And then what happened was, we kind of changed pitchers. I got that guy. He's going to be fine. He just didn't have a good outing. Then we get locked down from there. Then it's 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-2, 2-2, 2-2, and I'm like, oh no, or no, I'm sorry, it went to 3-0, and then we came back and then we tied up at 3, and I'm like, the way these midweek games go later in games, as we continue to rotate a new guy in every inning, they're going to get another run. We probably need to do something here to get this thing going. And I swear, I don't even remember the play-by-play guy, but it was Kaylin Arnold, the former Lady Vol softball player turned Florida State. She was on the call, and I'm just like, because you ever notice when pitchers get uncomfortable? It's like, I don't know. It happened a couple years ago with the Wright State pitcher. Laura was sitting over here on the couch and literally called it. She said, he's uncomfortable. They need to go out there and talk to him. He's going to do something stupid. The next pitch is when old Gilbert put it in the river, and walked that thing off, which is good for us. But you saw last night there was a moment when that pitcher, I don't know if he and the catcher weren't seeing eye to eye. He was shaking him off quite a bit, but he kind of stepped off the mound and rotated around there, and I went, ooh, this is good for us. This is really good for us. And next thing you know, I think he walked one. Then somebody got a hit, and so we had 2 on, and old Dreiling walked up, and it was just right across the plate. He kind of dug down to get it, but ultimately it went over kind of that right center over there, and let's just say cleared the bullpen. So super big hit there, 6-3. Late in the game, we had a little heroics there by Kirby Cannell. Got the bases loaded late, but that's where Kirby's at. Kirby is at his best in the hottest moments. I love him. He's going to be one of those guys, like an Evan Russell, like a Luke Lipsius. I'm trying to think of other, even Gilbert and Beck, those guys that are going to go down as, if you have to group the Tony Vitello era, he's going to be in it, because Kirby Cannell, the stash is it's electric when it needs to be.
Yeah. I mean, in the last 3 innings of the ball game, going back to what we were saying about the bullpen being electric, J.J. Garcia, Kirby Cannell, Aaron Combs in that order. 16 pitches for J.J. Garcia, 24 for Kirby, and Combs at 10. So, to your point, you're watching Kirby Cannell, and you get a little heartburn after eating all that caglione and spaghetti sauce and bread, but that was the part of the game where you start to feel that pressure upon you. But Kirby, like you said, Kirby has a way to be efficient and work out of that. And after Benke struggled, the ability for Garcia, Cannell, and Combs to come out and work through the late innings of that ball game, that was a testament to not only that game, but the Florida series and the Missouri series. I'm hoping that bullpen continues to be efficient as we progress against Vanderbilt and South Carolina.
Yeah, like you said, just to kind of wrap it up, I think Tennessee's got a chip on their shoulder. They're number one in the country and not even number one in their own conference. So I think it's one of those, they want to validate, not dismiss that. So I see Tennessee traveling to Nashville. I think it's going to be a home environment because Vandy's not been playing very well. So I could see Tennessee buying a ton of those tickets and having a lot of orange there. I believe, is it Dudley Field? I can't remember what the name of their stadium is. I'll Google it. But I expect Vanderbilt to be painted orange, similar to the way it is in the fall.
Yeah, it's going to be an electric environment. I mean, I'm looking for Nick Maldonado to be the starting pitcher. I think Corbin's kind of had some press conferences this week talking about Maldonado starting maybe Friday. This is kind of risky. I mean, this is a guy that has suffered an oblique injury. And they are trying to identify a game to get him going before finishing out the season against teams like Kentucky and Florida. But they also have Patrick Riley, a starter that he's a guy that struck out 14 and 5 2/3 innings against South Carolina recently. I look for it to be a good ball game. But again, this is a powerful Tennessee offense, and Vanderbilt coming off a sweep against Georgia. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder, and we talked about the chip on our shoulder being ranked number 2 and having to see teams like Kentucky and other teams drop some ball games.
Yeah, I just get 2 out of 3. That's all we got to do. Win some series, get to the house. But it is Charles Hawkins Field. Dudley Field's Mississippi State. I don't know how I got that twisted up. But anyway, Charles Hawkins Field, it is on at 2600 Jess Neely Drive in Nashville for anybody interested. Google helps with everything. But let's go get it done. Let's go knock it out there in Nashville and see what we can do there. But ultimately, Ben, we're going to be sitting here. We're going to be watching it. And then next week, good Lord willing, we'll talk about it again.
Absolutely, man. It's going to be a good way. I mean, we've got a couple of competitive SEC baseball teams to play to finish out the season. The girls are playing in the Southeastern Conference on Thursday in softball at 10 a.m. So that'd be something that we'll be watching as well. Just looking for a strong finish from both of our Tennessee teams as we get ready for the summer and going into fall football, brother.
Oh, absolutely. I'll leave you guys with a stat that was put on Facebook by the University of Tennessee. So not a Wayne-driven stat, but a good one nonetheless. Tennessee, in this last school year, only school since 1998 to win a New Year's Six Bowl BCS game, advance to the men's and women's basketball Sweet 16, advance to men and women's College World Series in the same academic year.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep, turn the heat down, Danny White. Turn the heat down, Don D. Plowman. They're putting together a winner over there, and that doesn't even speak to other sports that are really successful over there. Volleyball's real successful over there. I think the rowing team is pretty good. Golf's real good. Tennis is real good. So there's a ton of great sports going on in Tennessee. As my father-in-law would say, we may be living in the good old days. So.
Right.
But man, let's close it up for another week here. Back at it next week. Like I said, we'll talk about the Vandy series. We'll update you on any hot topics. And little teaser here. Next week we may dive into some Major League Baseball, kind of bridge that gap and open up for the Braves. And as you can see on Ben's head, his Orioles. We'll talk about both those teams. Maybe start next week. So hey. Until next time, take care, be safe. And if you like it, give us a like. And if you don't, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Grind on.